take a listen to some select clips from one of Harsh Reality's latest videos, and he has like a friend, like Eddie or something, that emailed him with their observations, and I'm just gonna explain why I think they're wrong. So let's go.
Of DNA, for instance, Hitler, who says, and I'm paraphrasing, DNA is evidence every day of the week and twice on a Sunday. Twice on a Sunday! Unless it's not Brian Koberger's DNA, because there's blood at the scene and he doesn't seem to be that interested in learning whose that is, despite the fact that there is other DNA at the scene of a crime that surely that deserves looking into a little bit more than it did. But
first of all, it's not Hitler's job to investigate other blood found at the scene. He's a judge, okay? He's just going to rule based on what they bring him. And it's not his job to tell them, go investigate that more. Now, there's no indication they didn't investigate that blood, okay? We still don't know which stairway the blood on the banister was found, okay? Was it the stairs leading to the third floor, or was it the stairs from the first to second? That's important to know. How old was that blood? Was it fresh? Where was it located? Like, these are all things that law enforcement would have looked into before determining whether it was CODIS eligible or whether it was related to the perpetrator, etc. And even Hitler brought up it could have been there prior. So, and left out context completely. So it's just crazy to go off thinking that nobody looked into this other blood. Now, the one out on the glove obviously is irrelevant because it was found days later after the property had been searched. So clearly it had nothing to do with the crime. But Anne, of course, is going to use that for reasonable doubt because that's what she does. But as far as what's eligible for running into CODIS or not, I've attached a couple things. You can pause and read. And so I'll just play it next before we go on to Harsh's next clip.
back and forth near the house by the Elantra in the PCA are true. But this wasn't Koberger's car near the house, as the PCA describes, backed up and admitted by the state and prosecution. Which again, with respect of is that car Brian Koberger's, it wouldn't suggest that it is. Bearing in mind the FBI agent, at the very least, again, as aforementioned, states that that car's a 2011 to 2013. Now, other people have pointed out that there's some other issues with that car, such as sunroofs, etc. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole just yet, because that'll make this video 3 hours long. But the FBI specialist stated that that car was a 2011 to 2013, and before you query his job and how good he is at it, he later correctly identifies Brian Koberger's car, when he's shown a picture of that, as a 2015 to 2016 Hyundai Elantra. So look, you can't have your cake and eat it. He either knows his shit or he don't know his shit.
So what I have to say to this is you're going off Anne saying that in an email, allegedly Imel claims he was more comfortable 2011 to 2013. But we don't know when that was being referred to, what context, what videos he was looking at. We do know that at some point he allegedly said, look for a 2011 to 2016. So at some point he told law enforcement to look clear up to a 2016. So not until trial are we going to know if he really didn't identify the car correctly, or maybe he did identify it correctly in all the videos and it really was a 2015. It's a bit premature to say that it's not his car on video. Not until we see those videos and Imel testifies. And he is on the expert list for the prosecution. And you would think if he's going to say it was a 2011 to 2013, and that's what I stated and nothing else, he wouldn't be testifying as an expert for the prosecution. So let's just wait to see what he has to say about his range going to 2016.
The pic sent you the average coverage for the tower is 1.3 miles, which I showed you yesterday. If you didn't see the video yesterday, go and check it out, because those are the things you need to listen very carefully to. Okay, so the average coverage for the tower is 1 to 3 miles. That is the AT&T Towers, which is the provider of Brian Koberger's mobile service.
Oh my gosh, credit where credit's due. Kudos to you, Harsh. Yes, you're correct. That average range of like those 5G towers, it's not what people keep trying to say. It's not 25 miles or 10 miles, or this is in theory, okay? In practice, 5G towers have a very small range. Now, rural areas, they get a little bit more, but still, you've got population, you've got people using the towers, you've got buildings, you've got, I mean, a lot of stuff goes into it. And 4G gets a little bit farther, but their average isn't very long either. So finally, somebody says that they're like 1.3 miles on average. So get the notion, people, out of your head that while he was sitting in his living room at Steptoe Village in Pullman, that he was pinging off a tower in Moscow, because that's not the case. That's not happening. So thank you, Harsh, for actually pointing out the average range on these towers. Very few people have done that. So it's refreshing to see. So thank you. Let's continue.
So PCA page 14, at approximately 5:30 a.m, the phone is using resources that provide coverage to Pullman. PCA page 8, at approximately 5:27 a.m, the white Elantra was observed on Stadium Way. The point, the 8458 phone was last using cellular resources at 5:26 a.m. in Genesee, Idaho, per the PCA. Page 14, at approximately 5:30 a.m, the phone was using resources in Pullman, and at 5:36 a.m, the phone was using resources in Genesee, Idaho.
Nope, that is not entirely correct. Yes, they say in the probable cause affidavit that approximately 5:30 a.m. the phone was utilizing resources that provide coverage to Pullman, Washington. But there is nothing that says at 5:36 it was using resources that provide service to Genesee. Also, he's misreading the part about 5:26 a.m. It doesn't say it was utilizing the cellular services for Genesee at 5:26 a.m. What it says is between 4:50 a.m. and 5:26 a.m., the phone utilizes cellular resources that are consistent with the 8458 phone traveling south on Idaho State Highway 95 to Genesee, then traveling west towards Uniontown, Idaho, then south back into Pullman, Washington. So did you catch that? It's stating between 4:50 and 5:26. It's utilizing resources consistent with traveling that path. It's not telling you which towers or small cells it's pinging off of, though. Just that they have followed the cellular pings to that route. So it's not saying he's pinging in Pullman at the same time as Genesee.
If there is a suspect vehicle involved, it is the Elantra on Linda Lane, and maybe the BMW X5 seen doing the 3-point turn used as Koberger's car on the PCA.
Except the BMW X5 seen on Linda Lane doing that U-turn there in the cul-de-sac is not what's being referenced in the PCA as the 3-point turn. The 3-point turn in the PCA is on Queen Road and King Road. It says the vehicle then continued to the intersection of Queen Road and King Road, where it can be seen completing a 3-point turn and then driving eastbound again down Queen Road. Completely different location. Okay? And I keep seeing people getting it confused and saying the 3-point turn is on Linda Lane. No, it's not. And that's not what they're saying is even the suspect vehicle, that car that turns around, does the U-turn at the dumpster and picks someone up. It's not. So please quit confusing these two.
The on-campus Moscow Police Department, which had several officers, was called to the house, and any witnesses were escorted to the department for their statements and held until college administrators were contacted. We can understand why most of the 8-hour delay happened.
So he's reading again this email from one of his friends, and his friend apparently thinks that Dylan and Bethany called campus police, which the campus police division is the same as the Moscow police division. Like, they have a little substation office on campus, and they have some people assigned, but it's not a separate police force. It's not like Pullman, where WSU police are completely separate. So you call 911, and Whitcom's going to dispatch from Moscow PD. It's not going to differentiate to dispatch campus or Moscow. It's just going to go out to all of them, whether they might be on campus at the time or they might be over at the Moscow police station. But also, it's preposterous to think that they called right after the crime and that people were escorted down to the police station, interviewed, campus authorities showed up, campus officials showed up, and then everything was made public with an 11:58 a.m. 911 call. No, that's not how it happened. There's no documentation that's leading to that. This is all in that person's head. Okay, that's not what happened. And even Ann Taylor isn't saying that they think that there was some sort of 911 call several hours earlier and that everything was like a big cover-up. Yeah. No.
The whole timeline is based upon their experiences and the communications with their phones and stuff.
Well, the whole timeline's not 100% based on Dylan and Bethany. It does talk about reviews of their phones, but it also says the video of the suspect vehicle below leads investigators to believe the homicides occurred between 4 and 4:25 a.m. But also, even though this isn't in the PCA, they also have the video from the neighbor. Well, that part is in the PCA, but not listed right here in this little section. But they know when that sound occurred, that they believe is from the murders. But also, you're going to have the autopsy report as well. The reports for each victim, things like stomach contents, etc., are going to narrow down as well when the crime occurred. So to say that it's all off of Dylan and Bethany, it's not. In fact, the time doesn't even hinge on them because there's several other factors that helped law enforcement determine the time frame.
So we then have an 8-hour delay. It's not an 8-hour delay, it's an 8-hour missing period of time where something is happening. Now, it's easy to just say it's an 8-hour delay because then you don't have to offer any explanation, because it's like that 8 hours is just extracted from the scenario and you forget about it. Oh, it's just a delay. But in reality, time didn't freeze, time continued. So if this crime, the build-up and all these things, they're hearing things, they're seeing someone leave, they're communicating. What are they communicating? That they've seen something, heard something, what the fucking hell was that? And then for 8 hours, time stopped. No, time didn't stop. Something happened. Something happened in this 8 hours. And what Eddie's saying here, and especially when you look at it from a fucking hell, this is to do with the University of Idaho, which is our main fucking breadwinner, and we're in the process of the acquisition of the Phoenix University. We've got students who are deceased. We don't know what's going on. We've got cops all in the fucking area. They're pulling people over. They're having conversations with people. You've seen them, the Banfield. You've got people running in the background, disappearing into the night, and even one of them has got bushier eyebrows than Brian Koberger, but don't get me started on that.
Yes, of course, time didn't stop. Time didn't freeze in that 8 hours. But what happened was neither of them realized anybody had been murdered. And until we hear everything on the stand as to what really was going through their minds, I don't think any of you are going to understand. Okay? I beg you to look up Alana Zabel. Now, there's other cases similar, but she's the main one. And she also reached out to Dylan because what she experienced was very similar. And she went to sleep after hearing her roommate being beaten to near death because she didn't know that's what she was hearing, okay? She had been out drinking. The perpetrator also walked through her room, but she thought it was a dream. So, I know I can't make you believe it, but maybe once Dylan and Bethany testify, you'll believe what happened, okay? That the mind tries to put you in a self-preservation mode. And it makes you not know if something's real or if it's a dream. Miss Alana, she had to go to counseling, and her counselor was who told her that her brain was trying to protect her. So she didn't know anything bad was going on. And in fact, when she got up in the morning, she didn't even see the blood. Not until a paramedic said something about the blood, then it registered, then she saw it. This is not new, okay? And so many of you just don't seem to want to admit that this is what happens, that this is not unusual. And Andrea Burkhart was even saying that she didn't think Dylan was going to be very good as far as providing, exact things because traumatic experiences. Your brain is not, you're not going to remember everything. You're not going to have clarity. So I hope that all of you, after listening to their testimony at trial, will have empathy finally understand what took place. Okay? They were not in the house cleaning up. They were not at the police station doing some cover up with University of Idaho. This had nothing to do with University of Phoenix. That is just complete rubbish that they would try to cover anything up. But yeah, I just hope that one of these days you will have empathy and understand what took place, and that there was nothing nefarious going on in those 8 hours.
Now, if they thought to themselves, if they did contact 911 or speak to a cop, even go out of the house and go and get one that's just standing on the street 50 yards away, something's happened. It could be explained that this 8 hours was a culmination of the people in the house discussing with law enforcement and then discussing and waiting for the relevant parties to come and have a discussion about how this was going to be dealt with, how this entire situation was going to be handled. So a culmination of the university, Moscow, Idaho police, and these kids and getting their shit together before they went public to the world. Police were never called. Your option is clear. We can state we weren't called, and you can be charged with the felony of no call. So, because remember, again, it is illegal for you to witness something, hear something, see something, whatever, and not contact law enforcement. That is a felony in Idaho. So at the very least, why aren't they being charged with a felony? How can you even ignore that? What, you're just going to say, oh, you can't charge them with something that they can be charged for because they were what? Would they have been charged if they were guys? And I've said this before. Would we be having the same conversation if these two girls were in fact boys?
If you don't know somebody's dead, you haven't committed a crime by not calling, okay? And Dylan and Bethany had no idea anybody was dead. Now, the person that found their bodies, Hunter Johnson, did call 911. So the law was not broken. If you read it right here, it says the person who finds or has custody of the body shall promptly notify either the coroner, who shall notify the appropriate law enforcement agency, or a law enforcement officer or agency which shall notify the coroner. So the person who finds the body, okay? Dylan and Bethany didn't find the bodies. They didn't know anyone was dead. Hunter Johnson found Xana and Ethan and promptly called 911. Okay? There's nothing to charge Dylan and Bethany with. Also, it wouldn't be different if they were guys. I posted something on my community posts about some male roommates of one of Ted Bundy's victims. They checked in, didn't even see the blood splatter, even though there was blood splatter on the walls, closed the gal's door, and didn't check in on her until hours later. And they weren't looked at as suspects even, and they weren't charged. So just stop with this. If it was men, they would have been charged. No. Nope. It doesn't matter. So that's a ludicrous... a lot of this stuff being stated by Harsh and his friend are pretty ludicrous today, but that one's especially ludicrous.
Then release the apprehended students to gather at the house. We received no call until 11:58 a.m. per James Fry, but did the campus police department receive calls?
Again, same exact police department. If Moscow PD didn't get a call, then they didn't get a call. That means the cops on campus also didn't get a call because they're the same police department. They don't have two different forces like WSU and Pullman are. So the 911 calls over in Moscow aren't split between a Moscow police department and a University of Idaho police department, because there's not a separate one. It's the same police department. Yes, they may have a campus division, but they don't get separate 911 calls. It all goes to Whitcomb and then goes to Moscow PD. Okay? If it's in the city. If it's in the county, then it's going to go to the county sheriff's office, Latah County Sheriff. But no one made a call until 11:58 either.
This is what we're saying. Who was contacted? Someone was contacted. In my opinion, in Eddie's opinion, an 8-hour period where nothing happened and it's just a delay, or people just simply went back to sleep. Fuck off would they go back to sleep? You're hearing stuff. You're hearing bangs. You're hearing thumps. You're hearing thuds, whatever. You're hearing people potentially crying. You're hearing people saying, I'm here to help you. All of this shit that you're claiming... Yet you claim that nothing happened for 8 hours. It just don't make sense.
Well, again, nothing did happen for 8 hours, so fuck off, Harsh.
Sense. It's okay, I'm here to help you, I'm going to help you. DM hears crying from Canodle's room. The male realises she's fatally wounded. DM was already in frozen shock as a result of the attack, which is why she didn't recognise the male, whom I believe was an officer. Several witnesses and not a single call, 6 days a week, but not on that Sunday, Mr. Hitler.
And there it is. There it is. These bozos think that the perpetrator was one of the police officers. There is absolutely zero indication, zero evidence, anything that one of the police officers committed it. And you can bet that Dylan would have recognized them if it had been one of the police officers, just because of how often they'd been around Greek Row and responded to the house and noise complaints and everything else. I mean, she was in her second year up there. She was a sophomore. So you can't tell me that she wouldn't have recognized if it was a cop. So let's just stop with that. That's, again, ludicrous. More fantasy drummed up in your head. And yeah, Hitler is right though. DNA all day, every day, twice on Sunday is probable cause. And Koberger's was on the underside of the snap on the knife sheath, found partially underneath the victim. So that is probable cause.